There is a specific moment. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive with a collapse, a crisis, or a fanfare. It arrives quietly, often in the wake of something that was supposed to feel like an arrival. The promotion, the practice suddenly becoming yours, the business hitting the number that you decided was the threshold for enough, and then nothing. Not gratitude, not rest, not the sense of security that you were building toward. A flatness, a vague restlessness, a resentment that shows up when no one is watching. If you felt that, I want to tell you something important. That is not ingratitude. That is not weakness. That is not a sign that something is wrong with you. That is your nervous system sending a dispatch. The override is no longer sustainable. The cost is exceeding the protection. Now, I know this moment personally. I lived in it for years and I called it drive. In fact, it was really disheartening because I was thinking that I was ungrateful. I was thinking that I'd built a beautiful practice. I had a waiting list that was years long, and I really enjoyed looking after my patients in a way that I thought where I was actually making a difference and helping them. But yet I was snappy and I was irritable, and that was quite intermittent. It wasn't all the time, initially at least, but I would have few and far between fleeting moments of feeling proud. And what I thought was going to be like a big win that would just build me up and make me feel excited just really didn't land as well as I anticipated it would. So, anyway, I'm Dr. Draper, and welcome to episode 2 of Patterns, Personality, and Programming. So, today we're going to talk about the architecture of override, specifically the 3 phases that the body moves through before it stops asking and starts screaming. And I'm going to ask you to locate yourself honestly in this map. So let's talk about how the architecture gets built. In episode 1, I introduced the idea of programming, the distinction between what we observe in behavior, what we've labeled as personality, and where it actually came from. Today, I want to walk you through how that programming gets constructed into something that looks from the outside like extraordinary success. It begins early, often in a home where love was reliable but conditional, or inconsistent but eventually available, or abundant but clearly calibrated to performance. Now, the nervous system in a child for whom attachment is biologically equivalent to survival registers that contingency, not consciously, but at the level of the lizard. If I am useful, then I am valued. If I perform, connection is secured. If I'm impressive, I'm safe. Now, this isn't a conscious decision. It's an autonomic adaptation, the body learning the rules of proximity. And then the strategy works. Teachers praise it, workplaces reward it, and promotions follow. You are so good at your job, and you succeed. So this external architecture of success gets constructed on the foundation of internal override. And the body for a time tolerates the cost because the program says the cost is worth it. I recall a patient. He's actually a senior consultant surgeon, late 40s. He came in not for anything specific, described it as a checkup, but he had a sore ear. And that's one thing that fails the physician heal thyself, as it's pretty tricky to check inside your own ears. He mentioned almost in passing that he'd been waking at 3 a.m. for the better part of 2 years. Stress, he said, comes with the role. I asked him what happened in those 3 a.m. moments and what was actually in his mind. He paused. Nothing really. I just lie there and feel like something's wrong. But I check. The kids are fine, the practice is fine, the wife's fine, everything's fine, and I just still can't get back to sleep. Everything was fine, and the body was running a full sympathetic response because the nervous system did not agree with that assessment. He hadn't hit the crack yet. He was in the quiet phase, the phase where most high performers still have a choice. Now, doctors are statistically the last to seek help for their own patterns. We are trained to assess others. We are not trained, and in many cases, actively discouraged from turning that assessment inwards. And consequently, we have one of the highest rates of successful death by suicide. So let's talk about the three phases. And I want to give you a map, but not a diagnosis, just a map, so you can locate where you are yourself. So the first phase is the whisper. Mildly fatigue, vague restlessness, a flatness after a win that you attribute to just needing a holiday, the 3 a.m. wake up, the Sunday dread. Your body is communicating. The signals are quiet, then you're just managing them. Phase 2, the escalation. Sleep disruption that doesn't resolve. Relationship friction that feels disproportionate. Increasing emotional reactivity to objectively minor events. Physical symptoms that your GP and perhaps you, if you're a clinician, can find no clear pathological origin for. In this stage, the body is communicating louder and you're managing harder. Phase 3, the presentation. Your body stops negotiating, stops asking, it presents. If you're unlucky, as a cardiac event, as an autoimmune flare, as the marriage that ends, not dramatically, but through the quiet finalization of a distance that had been accumulating over years, as burnout so complete that the high-functioning identity collapses entirely. Most individuals arrive at the work that I do somewhere in phase 2. They've been in phase 1 for longer than they want to acknowledge. And the single most important clinical fact that I know about phase 3 is it was not inevitable. It was the consequence of phase 1 and phase 2 signals being managed rather than metabolized. So managing and metabolizing are not the same thing. Managing means reducing the symptom enough to continue performing. Metabolizing means allowing the signal to complete its biological purpose, which is to update the programming. So high performers are extraordinarily skilled at managing. That skill is part of what created the success in the first place. And it's also why the crack, when it comes, is more significant than it needed to be. So with the benefit of what I like to call the retrospectoscope, I can see exactly which phase I was in and for how long. So at the time, I called it resilience. And I must admit, I blamed it on the patients being too whingy and whiny. In the next episode, we're going to go clinical. We're going to look at what stored emotion actually looks like in the body, and specifically why the signals that most high performers are managing are not character flaws, not stress reactions, and not inconveniences to optimize around. They're actually signal dispatches. They are trying to tell you something precise. If you are in phase 1 or phase 2 right now and you know which you are, hold this. The crack is not the problem. The crack is the intelligence. I'm Dr. Jen Draper. Episode 3 continues this story, so I'd love for you to join me for our next exciting installment.